there is a part of industry that actually released some of this stuff to the public. They're pacifiers. It means that you think by strapping the Tesla plate to the side of your head, you can use your mobile phone for 2 days in a row. That's basically it. It's a passive. They call it pacifier. So as long as you have something that you believe that is reducing your harm, you'll use this more.
They are selling devices which they put very expensive adverts together, and they put a whole cacophony of things saying it does this and it does that, and it's using special energy and it's using this, and it is literally a con.
Empowering yourself to take control of your health is one of the best ways to fight against tyranny. Head over to becomevibrantlyu.com.au and register for upcoming courses run by Ivy Lane and Chris Henderson. These courses are designed to empower you to take control of your health in this modern world full of endless toxins. You're listening to Coffee with Quacks with Ivy Lane and Chris Henderson. These are conversations with our favourite interesting quacks. Experts who threaten the mainstream narrative with their interest and skill in genuinely helping humans improve their lives in modern times. This podcast is purely for entertainment purposes only, and anything discussed should not be taken as health advice. My mind is actually racing. The speed at which they're able to monitor us and the rate that we're trying to keep up with this stuff is very vast. They're so fast, aren't they?
I think I do one thing. I step back and go, okay, that's happening. I'll go back, make myself safe, sleep better, and then I've got some sort of ability in my mind to work out the other stuff, because without the fundamentals, you've got no capacity to take on anything else.
Well, I'm just thinking that, the ramifications of that, where that could be used and abused in relation to just everything, like, so for example, if I'm in a city that's marked as going to be a smart city, that would be encompassing all of that, would it?
But you also have a mobile phone. I mean,
Yes, I know, but if you're conscious of that, you can do things.
You control it. I mean,
if you don't know if your lights and your TV. I mean, exactly. I don't have a TV on, but people aren't aware of that. And if their lights are transmitting information, that's. I mean, you can't VPN out that and it's horrifying.
There was a case, I understand, in I think it was in America, but Samsung released a whole series of TVs, big screen TVs, and they put a camera in it. And it wasn't a selling product. It wasn't a product that, they go, oh, and you've got a camera in it. It was built into the frames of the TVs. And there was a legal case that went against it because there were thousands of TVs out there, and they were able to tap in because they were smart TVs, and they were able to watch people and hear in their lounges. And it was heavily suppressed in the media and heavily suppressed in courts, and nobody wants to talk about it. But how many devices do you buy that you don't know what they've put in it? And it can drive you insane. But that's the world we've got the technology for, and it's being implemented in many ways.
We're implementing it ourselves.
Well, they're getting
we are the Trojan horses
through AI. I was talking to a friend who's into AI. He's like, we're building the AI ourselves. But I think in terms of like not blowing everyone's mind, I think you go back to basics. I think, again, like I said at the start, go back to the history of the electrification of the planet. Read something like The Invisible Rainbow, so you understand that this technology, where it started and where it's sort of going, and how you can fit in. And like, we're all about solutions. So I know Cyril has a boatload of solutions. He always gives plenty of time to people on the phone. I mean, the point I was going to make also, it's if people are serious, it's good to invest in a little sniffing meter that's not too expensive, to go and have a look around your house. And I'll give one example. I was with a client who bought a new house, and I said, look, I'm going to come out and I'd like to do a bit of a sniff around before I refer to Cyril and give him some more information. But in the client's house. Optus had been in there setting up a new modem for them, and it was a new house, so I had to go and check their bedroom out, right? Check electrical field, one side of the bedroom, fine. Other side, red, red, red. I'm like, what's on the other side? The meter box is on the other side of the bed. You're sleeping within a foot or two of the meter box. And then I went into her office where the husband said, look, she's really agitated in her office space since we got this modem, right? I go in with my sniffer and it's solid red. It's not even pulsing, Cyril. It's solid state red all the way up to, like, I don't know what that measurement is, but I said, look,
Quack.
where's the box that they gave you this modem in? There's a little lead in it. We can hardwire it in. So after being in that house, I was able to hardwire the laptop for her, make that area safe, and then give the hubby some information about the shielding that Cyril does for the meter boxes, so you can put a cobalt shield in the back of it and bring the magnetic field down. So I felt really proud of myself. I felt really I'd achieved something with that client, because on one hand, I'm trying to help them with their health and supplements and health coaching. On another hand, I go to the house and they're toxified themselves and she can't sleep.
Look, one of the things we see with the Wi-Fi, and it's just a misunderstanding. People think the box is Wi-Fi. It's not. The box is a router, and most of the time you've got some yellow sockets on the back of it where you can plug an Ethernet cable in. And then if you can get a cabler to come into your house and put sockets all around the house. So you can just plug a computer in, smart TV, smart fridge, whatever you want. You can plug them in to Ethernet cables by just networking the house. But the one thing so many people forget is to turn the Wi-Fi off, right? They'll have the Wi-Fi, or they have the router right next to them on the desk, and they'll plug in their computer going, see, I'm safe. But they haven't turned the transmissions off on the Wi-Fi or their computer. So often with an update, you'll find that your computer suddenly keeps putting on the Wi-Fi or keeps putting on its Bluetooth transmissions, even if you're connected by an Ethernet cable. So you need to go into your settings on your computer, the same as you would on your phone, and go, okay, Wi-Fi off, Bluetooth off, do it on your laptop as well, and look at your router and find the button that's got Wi-Fi written on it. When you turn that off, the router will continue operating perfectly fine. Now, there's a new wave of routers out there where they don't have a Wi-Fi off button, okay? Now, for the pennies they saved, I'm very dubious as to why they did it, okay? But on those cases, plug your cable in to the unit, and on the back of the unit, it's normally got a code to access the settings. And you go into the settings, find Wi-Fi, and then you can either schedule it, and by scheduling, I mean you can put in times where it will transmit and times when it won't. Like I was in an engineering company yesterday where they use Wi-Fi for various printers and equipment and whatever, but there's a house above it, an apartment above it. So 24 hours a day, they've left their gear on and they're radiating the people above. Well, so we got them together and we said, okay, well, upstairs, those people overnight are being poisoned. How about we go in and schedule the Wi-Fi? So now I've educated the technicians in the company downstairs, and they've just gone into the router, scheduled the use of Wi-Fi. So it comes on at 6 in the morning and goes off at like 6 at night. Simple. So even if you don't see a button on the front, often you can get in that way. And if your unit doesn't provide those facilities, get another one. Simple as that.
Get a different modem, right? There's a range of Telstra modems that we've found that they still have a Wi-Fi on and off, but they're set up with a chip in them, or like a mobile chip, right, Cyril? So if the power goes out, it's working like a mobile base station, so it's still emitting. Right. Yeah. So the Telstra ones, Telstra is a bastard anyway.
There's a couple of issues with those. So okay, and that can be useful. Where the internet drops out and it will kick in and it will use the 4G chip that you've got in there as a SIM card, and it will use it. And sometimes in emergency, that's great and useful. but the SIM, you can just press it and it'll just step out slightly. It'll still be in the case, but stepped out, so it's not connected. So when you do lose the internet, you make the choice to press it and start it. Because if you lose a cable or something on your network or your connection to the building, fiber optic, whatever, and you don't know, right? And it could be broken one day and your device will go straight onto the 4G, smooth transition straight to the telephone network through the chip. And if they never repair it, you'll never know, and you've got that chip just transmitting and transmitting. So you're better off having the chip in place, pressing it so it pops out but stays in the holder, so it's there available. And then if you do lose the internet, you know you've lost the internet and you're in control of it. You're aware that you've plugged the SIM in, and then you'll be going to your technician or your supplier and going, okay, I seem to have lost my landline. What's happened? Not just accepting that it works still. Don't worry about it. The other thing is, if you've got a domestic router supplied by Telstra here in Australia, very often they've put in that domestic router a Telstra Air setup. So you'll turn the Wi-Fi off, and then Telstra will ignore you and have their transmitter servicing the public.
Yeah, public access.
Yeah, public access through your router. And you could be servicing the motorway or the traffic or everybody else, and you don't even know because you think you're okay because you've turned off that illuminated button that says Wi-Fi. So check with your phone or whichever device you're using to make sure that your device is not producing Telstra Air. And if it is, go into the settings and shut it down from there, or talk to Telstra about shutting it down. Most of the time, the business routers don't come with Telstra Air on. So when we have one, we pay the extra $10 a month and we get a commercial account with Telstra, obviously because we're a business, but the benefits are significant. They actually answer the phone when we ring and say there's a problem. That's not something domestic people get. I actually, when I was living in Mullaney, I waited over a week of calling them. I waited over 17 hours to be connected to a technician who could answer my question, right? 17 hours out of my week when I had a normal domestic account. So you really are,
we're not getting what we paid for. And I often joke with Cyril, there's certain suburbs on the Sunshine Coast where you go to test and you see the high frequency 5G is just blazing and it's not servicing our phones, and there's one bar, and I'm like, I'm not getting the benefit of getting radiated here.
You get that around here too. So with that modem Air thing, do other companies do that, or is that just a Telstra thing?
Telstra Air is
Telstra.
So like Telstra. If you're with a TPG or iiNet or Optus, you might not have that, or
no,
they're different companies. They're not doing
totally different. So my client with the Optus modem, it was a big, you would love it, Cyril. It's a big box, and the Wi-Fi button was like that big, and they're in their 70s. I said, Margaret, you press that in, watch the light go off, and that's what you do. It was perfect. So you can find these things. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I think we've just about wrapped it up.
We have.
I think we've covered a lot.
So, Cyril, if people are wanting to learn from you, they go to your website. And is there like a way to sign up to? Because I think there'll be a few people who are interested in when your new magic stuff that you keep talking about is going to be available.
Look, if you're interested in the whole house filter, which is going to clean the electricity going into the house, look, that we're fingers crossed. They promised me I'd have my production board for testing at Christmas, and we're now at the end of January, and I'm saying, where is it? I keep poking them with a stick. But it's being manufactured here in Australia. The components are being manufactured here in Australia. It's designed here in Australia, so we're not held to ransom by overseas companies. So, we're doing everything we can. And as part of that, I've slowed the project down because I've said, well, I don't want to have to buy these in different overseas countries where they could just turn it off at a whim. We want to have them made here. So and Australia, unfortunately, has given away so much of its engineering. But yeah, no, we've put together a team that are able to put this together for us. And we've also made it for off-grid and on-grid. Now, if I was some sort of marketer, I would go, oh, we'll have 2 different boxes and you can buy that one or you can buy this one. Well, that's not what we wanted. We wanted one solution that doesn't matter where you put it, it works. Engineeringly robust, something that actually stands up to everything your house is going to go through, and clean it. And that's what our intention is. So that's what we've done. That's what the final product's going to be. And I'll be testing it, scrutinizing it heavily, and all the testing we've done so far, all our lab testing and all the stuff we've done off-grid and on-grid in real live scenarios. We've actually taken it to people's places and done proper testing of our prototypes, and it actually works. It works really well. So I'm really quite pleased, and the engineers are pleased too. Because there's a nice little group of us that have been putting this together.
And would they work in other countries?
It'll work anywhere you run electricity through it, basically. We just, if we were going down to 110, there's a couple of slight adjustments we'd make, but really I want to get it done for Australia first. Australia and New Zealand. It'll work in Europe as well, because it's they're 220, 50 hertz as well. If we were going to sell it overseas for America, we'd have to change it very slightly, but not much. It's basically there. But my interest right now is just to start helping Australia get it done here and prove it, and then we can move it elsewhere. But our website, as I said, is emfbusters.com.au. Don't forget that. Actually put it into your URL, because there's so many EMF people paying for marketing. So if you put it into just a search bar, you'll get 1,000 different companies before you find us. And most of them are just trying to sell trinkets and things like this. And we didn't cover harmonizers, but basically they don't work. They don't work on channel gate toxicity. And the simple thing is, if the product says it'll do everything, and you just stick it on the wall or stick it on your phone, chances are it doesn't work. And if they haven't tested it with channel gate toxicity testing, if they just use live blood analysis, it doesn't work. Okay, you can change live blood analysis with breathing, with a prayer, with a walk, with a glass of water, right? It's not a true test of EMF. Okay, I've got live blood analysis. I see a live blood analysis guy. We know it inside out, and it's that is not a test for EMF.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is great. So many people have this and get lost and don't know what to do. And even my best friend yesterday, she was like, I'm going to get this, and I said, just wait, just wait until this interview is out, because I think you're going to get a lot from it. So.
And just to add, Cyril, with just to top off with the trinkets, I mean, with the people I've spoken to and the scientists, there is a part of industry that actually release some of this stuff to the public. They're pacifiers. It means that you think by strapping the Tesla plate to the side of your head, you can use your mobile phone for 2 days in a row. That's basically it. It's a passive. They call it pacifier. So as long as you have something that you believe that is reducing your harm, you'll use this more.
Yeah, look, I actually did a test on that particular product in a hotel up in Cairns, actually, at a conference, a health conference, and they were trying to convince us that this dinner plate sized piece of titanium was going to help with EMF, and they're absolutely convinced of it. And it's $800, and it does 50 hectares and all that sort of thing. It's very sad, because we put a voltage meter on the lady, and then we gave her back her plate, and the values went up through the roof. Made her even more of an antenna. It didn't do anything. It made it worse. And there's so many other. There are some companies based in New Zealand who sell here in Australia, and they are selling devices which they put very expensive adverts together, and they put a whole cacophony of things saying it does this and it does that, and it's using special energy, and it's using this, and it is literally a con. Literally a con. You plug it in the wall, it flashes a blue light. And when we took them apart, we took all of their product range apart, and every single one of them has a flashing blue light. The chip that's inside is worth 79, no, it was 97 cents for that chip. And they charge like $1,400 for a thing you plug in the wall. You bought a nice box that flashes blue. It doesn't do anything related to EMF.
And that's not regulated.
No,
No,
I rang the ACCC. I rang the ACCC and I said, look, what about these products that don't do what they're supposed to do, and people are buying them because they're being conned? And the ACCC said, we're not here to stop people wasting their money. And I thought that's what you were. Maybe not. That's what they were doing.
That raises more questions than it answers.
They don't care. They really don't care. They really don't care. It's madness. And it's multi-level marketing at its most appalling.
And
really.
This is where you get, like, we use the term quack, but people need to have that ability to discern from themselves, to know the difference, and to do that, and to understand and to research, because people are so easily fed rubbish. And even people who, and I see this more in people who are just starting to awaken to stuff, they believe almost anything. They won't believe one thing, but they get presented with information. Their minds are so, it's like they're open, so they're very easily manipulated. And I think people who are aware of the dangers of EMF are kind of coming to that category, and they want to do something and they need to do something. And so here we go.
Yeah, look, I've seen an awful lot of health practitioners who unfortunately mean well and then do terrible things. There's a company down in Victoria who make a thing that they plug in the wall, right? A little green block of epoxy. And what the gentleman's doing is he's buying Delta plugs from Bunnings for $3.55. He's cutting this insulation off, sinking it into a tray of epoxy and putting a sticker on it and saying, this will solve everything. I had to speak to the electrical standards in Victoria about it, because they're using a plug with a safety mark on it that specifically is given a safety mark for its safety standard, and that includes the installation of it properly. And that means you're not allowed to cut off the insulation and then drop it in some epoxy and say that's as it was. Okay, and that device is nothing more than a fraud. And there are people out there absolutely certain it does something when in fact it doesn't. And if anybody's got one of those, just boil it in water, pull it apart, and you'll see exactly what it is. It's nothing. It's a plug cut in half, dropped into epoxy. And people and practitioners buy them for $100 each or so, and then they sell them to their clients for $150, and they think they're doing some good. In fact, they're just stealing for people. It's tragic.
I think I saw them at like $360 at some, but essentially, you've got to, once you understand what Cyril's talking about and you see that this is multi-layered, you'll realize that a green epoxy block, it says deals with dirty power, 5G, ghosts, cancer, you know what I mean? You realize you're getting conned, because this is an engineering and a physics issue, not an epoxy resin block issue.
And I think when people don't understand any sort of energy, they understand that that frequency is a thing and you can't discern it. I don't understand energy, like electricity, but I have a somewhat understanding of frequency. But for me, what I get to is like, I don't understand it, so it's too hard for me, so I don't do anything. It's a bit like water filters for me. Like, I know how many scams there are with that, so I don't do anything.
I think Cyril makes a great point, and there's a historical thing out here also with, we understand chemistry, right? But Cyril, you explained to me that chemistry is, before chemistry is electricity, it's electrical.
Yeah, that's right. Chemistry didn't really exist until electricity was understood, or potentials. Because even pH is an electrical value, right? It's an electrical value, and they relabel that electrical value as pH and acid and alkaline, so it fits the parameters of chemistry's observations. But it's actually an electrical value, and they can't discuss chemistry until you understand until you understand electrical fields.
So alkalizing the body is really balancing, people say that, you alkalize the body. I'm always skeptical about it. But it's balancing the frequency or the electrical current in the body. That is what they're trying to do. If they're testing the pH of saliva or whatever, that's essentially what is happening. Is that right? Would you say?
You're using certain words that aren't correct, like frequency and things like this, right? So let's say it's not a frequency-based thing. It's an electrical pathway, and pH is a measurement of electrical voltage. So depending on where you're measuring it, you're getting the electrical potentials in that area. So it's an electrical value, and chemistry is an electrical activity. We're an electric universe. We are electric beings. Have you ever, here's a question, right? No, it's not a question, it's a statement, right? Here's a statement. Have you ever wondered why DNA is represented by a helix?
No.
Right? Well, it's supposed to be chemistry, isn't it? It's supposed to be chemistry, right? It's supposed to be chemistry, and you see all the acid chain molecules, etc., and proteins, right? Really what's happening is they're being dictated to, not by chemistry, but by an electric field. Why is that electric field having an impulse? Or that what happens is the electrical field provides a torsion, creates a torsion, and upon that torsion is information patterns. The information patterns dictate how the chemistry, the matter, actually connects. So if you wanted to edit DNA, you have to understand it's not just a chemical event. You have to rewrite the electrical fields and the information patterns. And when people teach chemistry and DNA, they deliberately keep them isolated from the real thing that's controlling DNA, right? Which is an electromagnetic pattern with information on it that causes torsion, that gives it strength in nature. Okay, if you took a single piece of twine, a single strip of hemp, for example, and you pulled it, it would break. But if you take 1,000 pieces of hemp and twist them, now you've got a rope you can't break, right? And the creator of us realized, or through however process we became, right, that an electrical field with torsion and information can dictate matter. And that's where the building blocks of chemistry come from. There are electrical fields that dictate those matters and allow them to interact, right? And we're getting right down into some real deep stuff there. But when you start realizing that, you can research it and go, holy moly, everything is an electric field. And then when you live in a planet with a big magnetic field, we are set to balance there. Our chemistry operates as an electrical set of energies, and if we then introduce billions of times more energy, our DNA, our bodies, our functions will react to it. And that's what's happening. Transhumanism is not just about putting machines in the body, but it's about manipulating our electrical field until we are literally merged with these machines electrically. And we are totally set up for it because our brain, our mind, our eyes, all our sensory systems work on electrical fields. You can hijack everything. Well, how do you think you see this screen right now? You're receiving information and it's triggering electrical pathways in the cones of your eyes, and that's triggering electrical activities, which we see as nervous systems, and it's all held together with chemistry. And then our brain, the brain doesn't see. What it does is it detects things, and our brain is turning it into a picture. So it's using electrical signals from receptors to actually give us an imagination, a vision, right? And that's how we see. So if you understood it enough, you could give it a different electrical field at certain points, maybe override the ones that are coming in from the eye, and you could transmit anything you want into it. And if you look at the patents that DARPA and others have put onto the US patent office, you can see that they intend and are capable of transmitting mind-altering advertising, shall we call it, during your sleep cycles. So you'll have your mind transmitted pictures to, right, while you're asleep, right? And the courts, when they looked at it, they said that's okay because we already regulate cinema and television for not having subliminal information. It's illegal to put subliminal into it, right? And they said, well, we don't have a law against being transmitted to in your bed, so they are allowed to do it, right? I'm sorry, but EMF is so powerful, and we are an electrical being capable of receiving this type of stuff. And we're taking it to a point where, you know, these things are there in the patents. And if you don't see it, Dr. David Martin in America, he's wonderful for it. He really does show you. It really does show you what's going on, and he monitors what's going on in there. So editing of genes and things of this nature, all that's right there. Yeah.
And that made me think of, you know, this time a year and a bit ago, when people who I never thought would participate in certain things, and they were like, oh, I just asked and I got an answer that I should go and do something, or I got a download.
Yeah, great way to manipulate the public. They don't even know they're being manipulated, right? If you're going to experiment somewhere, you know, it seems like Victoria was quite an experiment, doesn't it? Really?
Oh, it still are.
Now,
we feel the experiments. I say this to Chris a lot. We can, you know, we can feel it. As a group of people, you know, that I talk to, we will go through certain stages where there's something different going on, and it feels like we're still being experimented on in different, you know, different ways.
Yeah, you have to be very careful of what you think and understand, is this your thought? If potentially this type of technology potentially could change the way you think, and you might think it's your thought, and you've got to guard against that, analyze and rethink everything. But that's not our day-to-day issue. Our day-to-day issue is you're getting absolutely burnt out, exhausted, and you can't sleep properly, and just shielding your bedroom solves so many issues.
It probably makes it easier to determine your thoughts against somebody else's, or
100%. I've been sleeping in the Faraday cage for about 3 months now, and definitely quite significant changes just in every way. But just to add, there's a book called Body Electric by Dr. Becker. There's a good reference point to that whole understanding that biology, electricity trumps biology, and that's how we heal. And he was a researcher in the 80s and 90s, 70s, 80s and 90s, Dr. Robert Becker. You might put it in the show notes. Maybe this have to be 3 parts. I think I'll split it up. I reckon we're going to split this up into parts.
Have to be split up on this one. I don't know. Because they're all so long because they're so interesting. I'd rather not cap time and get the information out there. So
yeah, look, if you're putting it on Spotify, then people, you know, they'll often listen to it while they're driving along or do something like that. And you know, I don't know, you know, you can download these things, and yeah, it's great.
Download safely, always wired.
The irony. The irony of us doing this podcast is I'm up later, I'm using more artificial light, I'm on my computer more. Actually, the first week I just totally fried out over it just because I haven't been used to it. So I need to start doing more of this stuff to combat the podcast.
We'll just release them a bit later, so we'll drag them out over a period of time rather than trying to give people too much at once.
Well, thank you very much, Cyril. I understand why Chris raves about you so much now. Not that I ever doubted it, but I really understand it now. It's been really wonderful. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And look, I'm going to be doing some talks in various locations. So, at various groups, etc. In fact, common law groups and all sorts of people have got us doing talks. And if there are people who have a group and they want somebody to come along and give them a talk about practical help, I'll be very glad to. I did one just before Christmas in Byron Bay at a yoga center, and we're looking at repeating that one down there and having a workshop there and helping people. So if there are groups out there who want a speaker to come in, I'll be glad to come in and talk to them, because the more people who understand this issue, solutions will come from every angle, and that's really what we want.
And how far will you travel?
We'll travel.
Yeah, look, London, Beirut, Bahrain, wherever, we just
Victoria. You're brave enough to come down here?
You were at a workplace health and safety conference in Sydney, weren't you? Or was that Melbourne?
No, that was it. I was one of the speakers at the workplace health and safety, speaking on EMF. That was end of last year. So yeah, I was actually one of the speakers there at the National Health and Safety Work. So yeah, and that's part of our EMF Safety .com.au work. So that's a separate website, so emfsafety.com.au. That's where we have test and monitoring equipment for 5G and up to 60 gig testing. And that's where we provide our industrial support. Then emfbusters.com.au is generally for the home shielding and that type of thing, as small business. But they're both using the same telephone number. It's 1300 863 000. 1300 863 000. Come straight through to me, and we're always glad to help people and direct them as to where best to get the right information.
Mm-hmm. Very valuable. Thank you. And we'll put that number down below as well.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, guys.
You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram and TikTok by searching for Coffee with Quacks.